Okay, so we're going to start off, the title of this group interaction, because it's not really as much the lesson as it is a group interaction, is laying the foundation. People often ask me, and they write like, how do we get community? How do we live in community as Hebrews? How do we move into the lifestyle of a Hebrew and not just studying what it's like to be a Hebrew? Because then that just loops us back into pretty much Western thinking and Western religion. The form of something, what it looks like, and not actually doing it, which is the function of it. So with going through each letter of the alphabet, we're going to give a look into the past, but then we're also going to give you a way of how to work out those things in the present as well. If we know what things mean, then we can interact. For instance, if I say a word like, that was really cool. One person might think, it was like cold to touch, right? Slightly cold to touch. And another generation might think, wow, she thought that was really groovy. And I'm like, what's groovy? Oh, groovy is like another way of saying cool. It means that it was like, and then we would go through all these abstracts and never get to the function of what I said. So that a person, if I say, oh, that's lit. Well, lit can have a lot of different connotations in our society, just even right now. I use it on purpose, though. I'm taking things back. I'm going to make rainbow stuff, too. I'm taking that back, too. Why? Because one person may view something one way because of how it's been defined by a dominant culture. And for a lot of us, the way we interact with each other, the way we read our Bibles, the way that we think has been defined or given to us by a dominant culture. And most of us have been given that dominant culture by the Greco-Roman society, life, living their way. It's been given by an alternative way than the Hebrew way. And so what we're doing, we go back and we look at the alphabet. The alphabet was created based upon what our ancestors experienced on a day-to-day basis. So everything and every letter of the alphabet is based upon something that they would have done or dealt with in their lifestyle. So when you're trying to reclaim your culture, you need something that's going to give you back what it was like in the past so you can apply it to the present. It's absolutely genius. It doesn't exist in any other language where you can literally look at the alphabet and literally take a jump back in time. And then the scripture, what it does with the alphabet is gives you practical lifestyle and instructions for how to live out that life. Now that you have the raw material, then you have Torah to show you how to interact with each of those things. So when you're looking at the alphabet, you're looking at your interaction with everything around you. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay. So we're going to start with the first letter. I'm going to draw them all in pictograph. I know the conversation comes up of, should I learn in pictograph? Should I learn in paleo? Should I learn in modern script? If you want to be a successful Hebrew, you're going to learn them all. Yeah. That's just point blank period. Because if you limit yourself in any area at this point in your walk, then you're going to be limited, right? The pictograph is important because it's the foundation of every other script. If you want to learn more about linguistics, I have a book on African and Asiatic phonologies and how language developed over time. But everything first started off with a picture. Every single language goes back to a root plural form. And many of us, including myself, believe that Hebrew, or a form of Hebrew, was that first language. It was pictograph, where I could draw a picture, and you could know exactly what I was talking about. We are going to run into some bumps today, though, because I am a terrible drawer. I've drawn these letters so many times, and we're going to get to this Aleph, and it's going to be a struggle, okay? And we're going to get to this Resh, and we're going to find Donald Trump. And it's going to happen, and I'm going to try to do my best, but I don't know why it happens like this. So I'm just letting you know ahead of time. For an artist, it's going to be a lot easier. If there's somebody that can draw in here, raise your hand, and I'll just pass it over, and then you can draw and I can talk.
I can do a rush, though. So we're on the same page.
So then this will be fun. And then Ariel just left. Bill know me on how to
Where'd she go? Where is she? I'm about to text her right now.
I hope she's on She can feel bad. All of this is because Ariel went to Walmart to get baby food because baby food is so less
more important.
I'm saying.
Okay, so we're going to start with the first letter. It's going to be interactive. We're going to draw. One of the things that I know I mentioned a lot is learning things like a child. And part of that is why I still draw, and I know I can't, is because kids don't have pride like that. They're not, they walk into the drawing like, yeah. And they're like, and I'm the terrible one. I'm learning. Lauren knows this, and the kids are getting better, and they're starting to draw better pictures. But I'll start guessing what it is. Oh, that's a ladybug on top of a... No, Mom, that's you. Missed it. So, but they, you know, so it keeps me in that childlike space, and it keeps me human as you're working through something very, very serious like the language and trying to understand it, drawing it and going over it over and over again. You guys see it's not about perfection. It's about literally getting that thing into your mind so that it becomes a part of who you are. Okay, so we're going to start with the first letter. I'm going to draw the picture. The fun part of this is you get to guess what the picture is. Okay, so it looks like...
Can you flip that?
Do I need to do what?
It turned.
Oh, it turned long ways. How about that? Okay.
Well, I don't know, but yeah.
Okay, let me start over then. Let's trash that. Let's get a new one. And let's do it like this. Make it a little bit thicker. Okay. So you said what?
I'll tell you.
Oxhead. It looks like there was some butternut squash to me. It looks like so it's an ox head. Okay, so we know immediately it's a picture of an ox head. So then, just like Adam had to take all of the animals when God brought him before him to name him, do you know how he did that? Does anybody want to take a crack at how he did that? Anybody?
By their function, how they move.
By their function, what they did. If you actually go back into the scientific name of the animal, even though it's in Latin, I believe it is. Yeah. It's in Latin. Literally, it'll be like Espithecus moithecus, and it'll be like the thing that moves like a this. Yeah. Literally, their scientific names tell what they do. So Adam would have saw an animal, would have named it based upon its function. That's why in Hebrew, when you take a animal, let's say like a behemoth, right, which is like a beast, and you look at the letters for it, we won't go into that in depth, but I'll tell you that it means in it is what it is. Right. That's what it means. So when he saw it, he was like, oh, this thing is doing what it's supposed to do. Right. But a behemoth was just being a beast of the field. It ate grass and did whatever. He knew that just by looking at it. A nakash, a snake, whatever it was, he knew it based on looking at it. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to look at this ox, and raise your hand if you have any previous knowledge of an ox. Have you seen it in a movie? Have you seen it in a video? Have you seen a picture of it, or have you owned one? Have you been to a farm? Have you been to a petting zoo? So raise your hand if you have any experience with an ox whatsoever. Okay? Okay. Or a bull. Ox or a bull. Right? Right? Yes. So let's look at them in a childlike mind. Let's describe them not necessarily based upon their form, but based upon their function or what they have in them. So an ox would it be a weak animal or strong animal? Strong, right? Would it be smaller or big? Big, right? Are they passive or aggressive? Normally they're a little aggressive. Okay, so when we go through and we get the word like, on your Hebrew definition it says strong, power. Leader is the ox a leader or a follower? Is the bull a leader? It's a leader, right? And then it's going to be a source. The word source seems a little abstract, but it was to not have to put a bunch of things down there. So what would be why would the ox be considered a source?
Because whenever that's how they were able to harvest, to sow the seeds. Plow. Yeah, plow. I can find the right. Yeah, they would plow using the ox, putting one peg on the other side, and then they would walk towards the other peg.
The mark, right. So they're the source because literally they are the source of their life. Yeah. Agriculture was life. Torah was life. How they lived, how they ate, how they fed their families was using that ox to plow the ground. The ox plowed, Yah sent the rain, and then they were able to reap and harvest the increase. So now you can see why, because I'm a big why person. Why does ox mean strength, leader, strong? Because the ox, literally, they saw that with their eyes. They termed it based on how they saw it. Okay? So when you now see an aleph, which is what that is. When you see an aleph, which is the first letter of the Hebrew language, when you see it in a word, you immediately know that's to do with strength, leadership, the source of something, like sustaining something. You know that's in there because that never changes. The function of an ox never changes. Us as a people, as humans, we are messed up, but everything else in creation obeys Yah. It's doing the same thing that it was set in place. That it was set in motion doing from the beginning. So apples are still producing apples until man gets in the way. And anytime man interjects into the space, and you get hybrids and seedless apples and all these other things, that is not how Yah set it from the beginning. He set things up in a way so that like kind can produce after like kind, so that we would forever be able to see and understand, and creation testify to the glory of Yah. And it would be in the language. So anytime you came back to the language, you could look out into creation and you could see creation function according to how Yah established it. So you can see the major conspiracy in man going and trying to manipulate the natural things. Because if he manipulates the natural things, and when you go out to try and see what Yah is talking about, what you're going to see is not going to reflect what Yah is talking about. That's why it's so important for us to wake up. I wasn't planning on doing this, but we're doing this. It's so important for us to wake up because there has to be someone's still doing it the way that Yah originally set it out to be done in a human form. Right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
And if you can remember the verse, it says that literally creation is waiting for the sons of Yah. Why? Because we've been doing our job, but see, people are not just going to believe us, creation, the created things. We need the interaction of man with creation to show Yah's glory.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Is it Romans 8:19?
Romans 8:19. So creation is waiting for the revelation of the sons of Yah. It's waiting for, it's like this completes the picture. It takes us back to that Edenic state where man is interacting with creation and it's making all of what Yah has established make sense. So the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet is a aleph. The picture is an ox head. And when you see that picture, you're supposed to think of the function of the ox, which is strength, leadership, source, and power. Does that make sense? Okay, so we can move kind of through the rest of it faster so that you know when we see a picture, what we're supposed to look at and draw out. Okay, the next one is a bet. A bet. Now this one may be a little less familiar because we don't live in houses like this anymore, but it is a bet, and it looks like an aerial view of a nomadic tent. So a tent was the place where Hebrews lived, especially our ancestors. So this side would be the opening, and then this side would be like the dwelling quarters, okay? And then that dividing wall separates one side from the other, like the male side from the female side. And it also is a picture of a womb. So, like the woman's womb, there's an entrance to the womb. There's only one way in. A baby grows in this protected space, and there's only one way for it to get out. Right? Right. Okay, so that is that picture. So when a Hebrew thought about a house or a womb, what would they think about? What would be some functional words to go with it? So let's start with a house. So a house would be a dwelling, okay. A resting place. A shelter. A place of protection. Absolutely. It would be inside, right? It's not outside, so it would be protected from the elements.
Man's castle.
Man's castle. It would be a place that, what would be inside of that house?
The family.
The family. So anytime you see a bet, it's a gathering of something. The family, the seed, the home, everything that is important is inside of that place. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right. So now you know what a bet is. All of us have had a home, have wanted a home, have yearned for a home. We know the picture of a home. each one of these letters is literally embedded into your DNA. I know that seems strange. Even as you awaken, a lot of people are like, I want a farm, I want an animal, it's a natural thing because your internal system craves to live out the way of the Father. As it begins to activate, you're going to want to get closer and closer and closer to His original way. Where before, I was like, I am not cutting goat hooves. I didn't want to touch a goat. They get mites and fleas, and I'm afraid of mice, so if I have brain, the mice are going to come. I mean, all those things go out of the window. It's all a learning experience. I found a mouse in the I left the grain bag open, which I knew better because, I mean, we live in the country. And I was throwing out shavings for the flooring of the goat barn, and literally threw a whole mouse out with a handful of shavings. And I'm terrified of mice. At least I was more terrified before, but I had to condition myself this is something that's going to be a part of this process. If I want to live out this way, I'm going to have to get used to things that I don't want to see. Now, I don't want one in my house. Maybe in the goat house. Maybe in the house. I'll freak out. So, but the house is something that we all understand. You understand the function of it. Even if you don't have a functional one, you know that it's dysfunctional because you have an internal reference point for what is functional, especially as you begin walking in Torah. Okay, next one is this one. So we're going to take a guess at this one. This one I don't know. So what does that look like? A foot.
L.
It looks like an L, but think like a kid. How do you draw? When you're a kid, right? Everybody draws their people, unless you're like Jazz or somebody. Where when you really starting to draw, right? You be drawing. Right. You draw a person. They have a head. You make a little curly hair, right? Then you put their eyes. You start doing like this, trying to get them all nice. This person looks a mess. But then you start drawing the body. This is what I was trying to get to. And you start drawing necks and arms. When you get to the feet, everybody does this. Right? Yes. And it goes up like that. Right? Yes. So when you think about a gimel, think about how you used to draw feet when you were a kid. Right. Think about that foot at the bottom. That is what that is. It is everybody on boots. Everybody. Yes, that's right. Oh, I was terrible at drawing. Right, so that's a gimel, and it's the third letter of the Hebrew alphabet. So what does a foot do? We all have feet, have had feet, or know what it looks like for people to use feet. And Yah literally does that with every letter. If you don't personally have it, you know somebody that does. You've seen somebody that has done it. So that's why in this life as a Hebrew, and especially in this life as just a created being under Creator, you are without excuse. Because everything that He wants you to experience, He's put before you. If you don't have legs, somebody else does. Yeah. Watch Him. If you don't have a home, somebody else does. Watch them. If you don't have, an ox, somebody else does. Why? Because you can't eat without them. Even if you don't have one, you're going to drive by a place where there's cows out there. And so Solomon tells us to observe. He's like, watch the ant. Watch this. Watch it. Why? Because if you just stop and you take time, you will literally see the message that Yah is trying to send you through the things that He has set up to speak to you. Wow. They speak to us in a very childlike way. That's why when you get quiet, you're like, man, I was out walking the other day in nature, and I saw this, and then the Most High began to speak to me. Why? Because the things that He's chosen to stimulate that part in your brain so that you will activate in that area to listen are out there. Right. But we never step out there, so guess what? We never do. Right. And then we're wondering why, I've been reading, I'm not getting anything. Step outside. Absolutely. And He'll show you, you'll see a squirrel chasing the squirrel, and then a hawk, so you'll be like, wait, whoa! And then all of it will make sense. All of it will make sense in time. So, foot, what does a foot do? You walk. You walk on your feet. They support, they stabilize your body. They move, right? Yep. So, a gimel, it also is a camel. So, a camel, the funny thing is a camel has a foot. Camel is another beast of burden. It carries things. So just like your feet carry things, a camel would have been likened to a gimel because it would carry something. That makes sense? What's another one on there? To go, your feet take you, right? You gather by using your feet and going to a place of gathering. So you see how these definitions immediately begin, if I just paid attention to the foot, instead of philosophizing about, feet have toes, toes have nails. And maybe he's like, scratch. No, it's very, very, very basic. It's very simple. Okay, next one. This one looks like this. And I'll give you a better picture if I do like this. And this was extended a little more, right? What would that be?
A door.
It's a door. It would be a doorway. Like you're walking into, if this was like a little footstep at the, some little stairs here, you know? You'd be walking into, right?
Come on in.
You'd be walking into something, right? So then you immediately say, okay, what is a door for? You have a door. A door is an entrance. It's an exit, right? Okay, it separates you from one space to another. So funny to me when I go to places like here out in the country, people have wide open land and they'll literally have a driveway with a fence, but then there's no fence on this side and no fence on that side. You're like, what's the point? I just want you to know that this is where you're supposed to go in through. I'm not just trying to keep you out of everywhere else, but this is where the path is. Right? So this is where you're going to, so yeah, you could drive out there, but then it's going to be muddy. And you're going to get stuck, but I've actually paved a path through this particular door that's going to allow you to get where? To my house most of the time, right? So the door to the Hebrew was entrance, a door, a pathway, dimensions. And we see openings and closings of dimensions when you see interactions with prophets and the spiritual realm. So that's also a door. It's a gateway, right? Both negative and positive spiritual interactions. And then a door would hang. Our doors still hang. We don't think of it like that because of how they're hinged and they don't just like flop back and forth. But a tent door would have flowed just like if you open and close a door, it flows. So it's a place of, it moves. The door is a place of movement too. We move in and out of it.
Ironically, my mom's an architect, and so whenever she's drawing her plans, the door, I was able to find the door easily because on a plan, it looks very similar to this.
Wow.
And when you hang a door, like whenever you put a door in, you don't say I'm putting a door, you're hanging a door.
I'm hanging a door.
Yeah.
Very true, very true. We don't, but because it's static in our brain.
Yeah.
We're like the door, because most of the time our doors are closed.
Yeah.
Right.
So the door is like a closed place, but no, Hebraically, you're moving in and out of that space. You're moving in and out of that door. Okay, next one, hey. Hey. So now when you see these, you're immediately going to think of these definitions. I want you to keep that in your mind. When you see them, think of what we're doing. Because then you're going to be able to define the words. And I'm just reiterating that so you know that is the purpose of what we're doing. So, hey, what does that look like?
A man with his hand raised.
A man with his hands up, right? Very, very simple. And the funny thing is, it's drawn in a way, and this just like just blows my mind. We still draw stick figures like this.
Yes, we do.
So you're telling me, thousands and thousands of years ago, somebody was drawing stick figures just like this. And now today, removed from our culture, disenfranchised, not understanding our language, in a land of our captivity, we can look at a picture that our ancestors draw and know exactly what it is. It's genius. Genius. So it's a hey, a man with his hands raised. What is he doing? If a man's hands are up, throw your hands up. And what do you do when you throw your hands up? You just go like this?
Right.
You're gonna surrender. You're going to look up, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then why do you look up? Do you just look up just to stay looking up? Because that would be a little crazy. What are you looking up to? Yeah, but what are you waiting for?
Yep.
When you are in a moment of just like, I'm just so done, you are literally waiting for something. You're waiting. Tell me something. Guide me. And then you see the movies and go, is there anybody out there? Right? That picture, but literally what this is gonna, for a lot of people, if you know any history about slaves and slavery and slave navigation, the slaves look to what star did they look to?
The North Star.
The North Star. Literally when this was drawn, archaeologists have found that that's what this hay was looking to. The North Star was the bright star, it was a star of direction. And so when our ancestors looked up, even in biblical times, they looked in that direction because it showed you how to move.
Right.
And so in that motion, that is what that picture actually represents. So when you get to the slaves actually trying to get out of slavery, they looked to the North Star. It was a context clue for us to look at saying, well, what other culture looked to the North Star and then moved based upon the direction That K actually represents a man looking up to the North Star, waiting for direction from his creator on how to move and navigate. Right. So those things have always been there. So it literally means to reveal, because when you're waiting for something, you're waiting for something to be uncovered or revelation to be given. To breathe or a sigh. I don't know if you've ever sit out on a starry night when it's clear and you feel like this big, and you just go, like everything everything is in that sound. Like, I'm so small, he's so big, I'm overwhelmed, I know it's in his hands, I want to cry. Everything is in that just, like just something. It's a communication. How we breathe and how we communicate can get you beat up in our culture too, by the way. Excuse me, when you huffing and puffing, you like, you mad? Like, I'm just breathing. So you know that breath is also a form of communication within our culture. Where in a lot of other cultures it's not so much, where you can that's something too. They won't how we sigh and breathe can communicate things. Like it's a thing. So it's in our culture. So when we talk about the breath of Yah and him giving his character and things through his breath, in our culture we can understand that. I'm breathing something into you. I'm breathing an essence in you. I'm breathing a mood, if you will, that I want you to follow into this moment. So breath is very important in our culture. One of the things that has been taken out of our culture is breathing. It's breathing, because everything has been made to us to seem so bad and negative. So it's like, do you meditate? Do you breathe? Yeah. Jazz and I were doing a thing a couple years ago, and we were talking about just like how our natural energy in our body doesn't move properly because we don't breathe. I didn't know this. She did. But we don't breathe right. You're actually, babies do though. You know what I mean? Those have a pot belly. Right. Because they extend their belly when they breathe. We get older, we're like, suck it in. You're not breathing right. But if you breathe right now, you breathe out. Breathe. We're all going to do it. Breathe out and actually push your belly out. So. And then breathe in. Then do it again and push your belly out. Doesn't that feel good? Yeah. It feels good.
I feel like the opposite way. You had an extra dose of life.
Right. It just immediately, it feels like the breath actually fills up every part of you. Yes.
We release toxins. Deep breathing.
Yes, and you release toxin with deep breathing. That's why they say if you're upset or if you're tense, breathe, because there are firings, chemical things that are happening that are creating those emotions. And breathing brings in another element to kind of dissipate or alleviate whatever that feeling is. We don't do it often, but we should take a moment just before you even get mad, get ready to answer somebody. Just I'm a little crazy. I'm being okay. How may I help? Like sometimes it's necessary. It just is, and we might do that a couple more times throughout this, just so we can feel that in this state. All right, the next one is the letter Vav, and it looks like this. Okay, that one may be a little strange if you haven't been camping before, but that is a tent peg. And so you would actually I'm terrible at drawing, but you would actually wrap your rope, and it would be tighter, and you would anchor it to that. So then, what is the function of a Vav? To secure something, to fasten it, right? What are you doing when you're adding the? Oh, I just said the word. What are you doing? But you're adding something to it, right? So you're adding an element to it. You're keeping it steady. You're keeping it where it needs to be. If you've ever bought one of those gazebos and you actually didn't stick it down like we did in Phoenix, and the wind blows, the whole thing topples over. The function of those holes in it is to take a peg and to stick it into the ground so as the wind blows and as rough winds and other things come, it'll stay secure. Same thing, rooted, exactly. It's the same thing for us, right? Is a tent peg secure when it's standing out of the ground? No. It's secure when it's what? Pushed deep all the way down in the ground. We're seeing it like this, but it's not secure until it's all the way down in the ground. It's the same thing with us, right? When our faith and our understanding, which is that word, that Vav, when our faith is secure deep down, then things can anchor onto it. a lot of times in the beginning of our walk, we want to share, and then we share, and the people snatch our peg out of the ground, right? Because then they try to fasten onto it, and then you start going 50, and then you get uprooted. So you have to be secure before you can tie, and other people can latch onto you, right? Okay, next one is a Zion. There are 22 letters, just in case you're like me and you're like, how much longer do we have for this? A Zion looks like this. This is not a very, very popular tool in probably our modern culture, but we still have things like it. But
I saw one at Home Depot.
you did? Yes. You start looking for them. Like, yes, because every tool that we use that is mechanic, there are some people who use the what is that? The analog, the manpower way of doing it. I can't think of the word I'm looking for.
Manual.
The manual way of doing it. Okay, and so like this is one of them. I actually bought one the other day and it was a disaster because the grass was too high. But this is a Zion and it's like a plow or a weapon, or it can be a sickle. Something to cut with. It can cut into the ground. It can cut this way depending on how you use it. If you have been following the 1 Samuel series, our ancestors sharpened these things, and the Philistines were afraid that they were going to use their gardening tools as weapons. Those are some bad dudes. If you're like, I'm afraid of you with gardening tools. That was a lot of the reason why during the slave times they had to really have gotten into a slave's mind to give them more advanced or more give them tasks that require guns or weapons or a sword or a plow, and that's why a lot of them were in the field picking cotton. Because I could then, what are you gonna do with cotton? Now they know they're getting strong out there; they just kill your bare hands. But that was why a lot of the work was all domesticated work. That's why they had overseers and taskmasters that did other things because they didn't trust them. Just like the Philistines went in and took away their ability to defend themselves. Same exact way, if you can keep a people from defending themselves, then you can keep them from rising up. No, that's why, because they're not worried about them having guns. They're worried about us having guns. Shameless plug. So in the Hidden in Plain Sight, I updated some things. And one of the portions was the second Exodus portion, because everything is cyclical. Even us going through these Hebrew letters, it shows the cyclical nature of our culture. And it's that these things are constantly brought back around over and over and over again. And during Joseph's time, well, after Joseph passed, and the Pharaoh that came that knew not Joseph, it wasn't that Pharaoh didn't know Joseph. Yeah, everybody in Egypt knew Joseph, because the very thing they was ticked off about is that there were people in power that were not them. Right? And so he was like, we need to get back. If we keep letting these people prosper, they're going to overtake us. If you know the people, then you know they're leaders, if you will, right? Just like our people, we've had leaders throughout history. And the powers that be were very, very cognizant of who our leaders were. Whether it was Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, even Louis Farrakhan, those are leaders of our community, right or wrong and different. They're leading the people. And so they always know who these leaders are. And one of the things that happened is that they ended up with and I call it a make Egypt great again Pharaoh, right? A make Egypt great again Pharaoh. And one of the things that he talked about was we have to disarm them, because if they at any time know how powerful they are, then they're going to try to take over this place. Yeah. And so you were talking about just like the ability to have weapons and how it's, by the way, this is a weapon, which means that it is a right. The Hebrew also have a weapon, right? So, but it was a thing to keep them from doing something that, honestly, if you knew anything about the Hebrews, they weren't supposed to do anyways. They weren't trying to take over Egypt. Y'all gave them Canaan. So you were like all in another space with them, and just like our people. Our people are, it's sad to say, the least harmless people. We do more harm to ourselves than to other people, and most of that is just because of lack of knowledge. We're not trying to take over this system. We just want our own. Exactly. Right? Can we just have our own home? We'll leave you guys completely alone. You let us live how we want to live, and we'll let you live how you want to live. We don't care. We're not trying to change your system. Can you just leave us alone? We want to run our system. Right? Okay. No, we do a good job most of the time minding our business. So Zion is a plow, a weapon, a sword, and what do? You cut with it, You you dig with it, and it is a tool, and it's also indicative of how we're supposed to go into the Word. Right? So it's a picture, like you said, the Word is sharper than a two-edged sword. Why? Because it's a divider. Right? Because the way the Hebrew language works is each one of these letters, once we found the definition, we all are like, oh yeah, it's a plow weapon. So if somebody comes in here and says, that's not what that is, you can't do that in this space. No, that's what it is. You don't want to accept what it is. So now you've been separated. Now we understand that the Hebrew language works like that. When you're presented with a word, right, and a definition, it's concrete, it can be tested. So if I say love, or I'm just trying to pick grace is being invited inside the house.
Right.
If you don't agree that that's what grace is, then guess what? That is, you just don't get invited inside the house.
Right.
It doesn't change what that thing is. And that's why Yah's word is a great divider. It's not something to be argued. When you're confronted with his word, with his truth, you have two decisions. Go with it or walk away. There's no middle ground with him. It's very, very sharp. It's straightforward. You're forced every time you encounter his word and his language to make a decision. If you don't think that's a Zion or a plow, you're forced to make a decision. To remain ignorant, or to go find out and look in history and see, oh my goodness, that is one, and now I need to commit this to memory because this needs to drive how I in this country. So, but one of the things that has happened over history, people who, especially powers that be, they follow history. What happened to every nation that had God's children and they left? It crumbled. So what would you try to do? What would I do then? Oh, I would find a way to keep them in.
Oh yeah.
Walk to Mexico.
Yeah.
And then you could go to the islands and you could just be free.
Yeah.
But it's just in this generation that we